And blessed to be a part of your day. 17 years ago, where were you? Where were you when those towers fell, when that plane fell out of the sky in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, when our Pentagon was attacked? Daryl Worley's song sure rings true today. Kevin Miller with you here. Our phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. And what we'll do, as we do every September 11th, is to pause, to pray, to contemplate, to speak on the events that changed our lives and the lives of so many. You know, 17 years is a long time. And it's funny when you talk to 20-year-olds or 25-year-olds or, you know, even people that are a little older, maybe in their 30s, when they were 13, 14 when this happened, you get that historical perspective. And I do want to caution you that if you are listening to this program for your first September 11th, we take you back to when those towers were attacked. We take you to Ground Zero 3 weeks after the attack. That voice you heard, that was me covering the event. And it's not about me, but we were part of an effort that eventually led to national radio hosts going to New York. But it started with yours truly getting a cassette recorder that he bought from Home Depot and going up there and reporting. And that's what we'll do today. And you wonder where those people are, those brave heroes that went inside those towers. There's been movies, books written, but going back to that day, and we will do that today. We will take your calls, but again, you will hear that event as it happened at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. First off is an interview with a firefighter who was trapped and thought he was going to die in that building that I conducted at Ground Zero.
A lot more destruction than what you see actually on TV. I mean, half of downtown is pretty much wiped out.
Everyone's given us such an incredible amount of support.
Now, Nino, you're doing something special here.
I don't think I'm doing something that's so special. I'm doing what every American is doing in their own way. Only that I have the good fortune of having a full-time function trying to support this effort of rebuilding and healing. I think every American wants to do their part. Well, what were the American people doing that day, September 11th or 12th?
God bless America. God bless the people. Where are you coming from?
Alabama.
Alabama. God bless you.
God bless you.
Stay my regard to Alabama.
It's stories about everybody.
You always hear about your life flashes before your eyes when you think you're going to die. And I was on the floor and things were landing on me. I thought I was going to die. And the first thing I thought was, I'm never going to see my wife again. Over, I'm sure it'll hit me.
Anything you'd like to say to America?
Yeah, just thank you for the support. I saw people in the lobby were on fire, literally on fire, still alive.
I didn't think we were ever going to get out.
You had a guardian angel that day, didn't you?
And that noise started again, and basically the building was collapsed right around us.
I'd like to say good morning to Alabama and tell them that, you know, it's very touching to know that they still care. Because sometimes, you know, when you're here, you feel like you're alone. And I know a lot of you are thinking that you don't have the time. And I said, if you think I have the time, you're crazy. And I said, but you make the time. If you think that God is going to take the answer that you don't have the time, I can tell you now that I don't think that's going to be a valid excuse for God either.
Dr. Laura Barreau at the time from St. John's University. Now, obviously, I wasn't in Idaho at the time. I was in Alabama. But you could hear the resilience in her voice as she was getting students from across the country to get together and rebuild New York, less than a month after the attacks.
I think this is a time that we pray for the children who lost their mamas and daddies. We pray for the family members who lost loved ones. And what we must do is resume our normal lives as quickly as we can and to show whomever is responsible that we will not be frozen by their acts of terrorism. I hope that every mother and every daddy will take time tonight to be with their kids, to hold them and to love them and to let them know that they're loved.
Apparently there is a fire at the top of the World Trade Center. I repeat, a huge fire at the top of the World Trade Center. We have this now, yes? A plane crashed into the World Trade Center.
This just happened moments ago. A plane crash in the top of the World Trade Center in Lower Manhattan.
This is broadcasting at its best. It's what broadcasting does to serve the public best.
There we have it, as it actually happened that day, 17 years ago. And again, this is a world before you had the satellite television, maybe to a degree, a world before you had the Facebook, a world before you had Instagram and social media, and our phones were not as part of our lives as they are today. And I can recall trying to figure this out and wondering where the president was, because the president got on Air Force One and hit the road. This is the first time that we had been attacked at home since Pearl Harbor. Now, if you weren't alive at the time, or if you were just a little kid, maybe you don't remember, and September 11th is just TV shows and, what you see on tablets. And the world has changed. We've attacked Iraq. We've gone into Syria. We've gone into the graveyard of empires, Afghanistan. And all those people that are no longer with us. In Shanksville, Pennsylvania, they finally completed, and the president will be there today, they finally completed the memorial to Flight 93. 40 Americans. We'd like to think that we would have that same courage, right? Took down those terrorists before it went to the White House, before it went to the Capitol. A few years ago, I was on a Capitol tour, and they were talking about, with grim resilience, how they thought that they were next. Can you imagine the terror and the courage? Far different than the world of Colin Kaepernick and Brett Kavanaugh and AAN. That's real fortitude. Nothing against Justice Kavanaugh. People want to trivialize this day. It's not just another day. I wish that it could be a holiday, personally. But then we'd just turn it into ribs and chicken dinners, wouldn't we? Could you imagine we're having a September 11th sale? No, of course not. But it's a day where all of us should pause and reflect and thank God that we're all still with us on his green earth.
A tremendous amount of smoke is billowing from the upper levels of that tower.
The wingtip had to be at least 150 to 200 feet wide. Oh, my God.
Oh.
The next building
There's
just
another
blew
one.
up. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Another plane just flew in.
I feel the heat. The explosion is incredible. Oh, my God.
Another plane as we
I
were
don't
watching.
believe this. The second tower has exploded from about the 20 stories below in a gargantuan explosion.
Firefighters, everyone yelling, run, run, people running down the street.
It just blew up. A big explosion. People started running. It was just chaos everywhere.
As soon as it got hit, I was thrown to a window. So I was very lucky to get out.
I was up in my office on the northwest corner of the 82nd floor. I heard a noise like a sonic boom almost, and then a blast. The building swayed.
I'm sitting down and I'm crying. I couldn't believe something like this would actually happen. And about 10 minutes later, then the whole building just started to collapse.
It was about 9:35, and I was looking out our 12th floor windows, and I watched this. It looked like a commuter plane, 2-engine, come down from the south, real low, proceed right on, and crashed right into the Pentagon.
The aircraft penetrated deep inside the Pentagon. It is organized in rings from the E-ring on the outside. It penetrated all the way into the A-ring in the inner part of the Pentagon.
As we are boarding Air Force One, they have bomb squads out here checking all of our gear a second time.
It's Linda Douglas on Capitol Hill. We've just been told that the Capitol is being evacuated and that all reporters must follow the direction of the Capitol Police.
It's Monica off the FAA conference call. There are no planes taking off in the entire country. Planes are allowed to land. No planes are taking off in the entire country.
It's Martha Raddatz. They have now issued an evacuation order at the State Department. As a precaution, they're saying everyone should evacuate.
Today, we've had a national tragedy. 2 airplanes have crashed into the World Trade Center in an apparent terrorist attack on our country.
There are a large number of firefighters and police officers who are in harm's way, and we don't know how many we've lost.
The worst domestic disasters in U.S. history.
And justice will be done.
These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat, but they have failed. Our country is strong.
There we have it, President Bush on that day. Have we forgotten? By the way, you're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM, Kevin Miller in the morning, as we review what happened that day, 17 years ago, 9/11. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio.
Now there is only one tower of the World Trade Center. The South Tower has completely collapsed upon itself.
Suddenly there was a huge rumble, and every emergency person there grabbed a civilian and dashed us down the street ahead of a huge choking cloud of smoke.
The FAA has directed us to get all the aircraft out of the air.
Carol, in your history at the Birmingham International Airport, has this ever happened before?
Absolutely not.
A major disaster has occurred near the top of one of the World Trade Center towers in Lower Manhattan.
Another plane has just flown into the World Trade Center. This is not a joke.
We now have fire confirmed at the Pentagon.
A most incredible, horrifying sight. The building has simply disappeared.
One aircraft that has been hijacked that is still in the air.
Problem at the North Tower, Peter.
Let's look at the North Tower quickly.
Seems to be coming down.
The World Trade Center tower, now there is only one. Remember earlier, half of one has gone, the other half is gone. There is only one World Trade Center tower now. Back to Peter Jennings.
It's hard to put it into words, and maybe one doesn't need to.
Well, they're both gone now, so there is no more World Trade Center. Peter Jennings, again, back to you.
Have now been attacked and destroyed with thousands of people in them or in the immediate area adjacent to them.
All right, like I said, I want to tell out my thoughts and prayers to all the families.
They have to show a united front. That is what we just saw a few minutes ago.
And I pray for our leaders.
They're saying that there are entire companies of firefighters that they don't know where they're at.
Certainly thoughts and prayers go out to the families.
You can't help but think here are at least 400 or 500 people who went to the scene after the first crash, who went there to help. They perished as well.
The determination of these terrorists will not deter the determination of the American people. We are survivors, and freedom is a survivor.
Freedom is a survivor. You're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM. KIDO Talk Radio, traffic and weather together. Let's get you to...
You're on. It's just Jim Duthie.
And let's go to your phone calls. Kyle and Star, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller.
Good morning, Kevin. Thank you so much for taking my call this morning. You talked earlier about the importance of the day. And, you know, for those of us that woke up that morning and saw what was happening, for me, I saw the first plane hit, or the second plane hit after the first plane hit. I saw the second plane hit live. And, you know, you get the wife out of bed and watch what happened and watch the events unfold, and you're kind of glued to the TV before work. But like you mentioned before, though, a few minutes ago, the kids don't really know what's going on or what happened, or, you know, the enormity of the day. And I actually teach a class on 9/11, and I taught it last year at the school here in the Treasure Valley. And I had some trepidation about teaching the class because I didn't know how parents were going to react. And sorry, I get a little choked up. So I sent an email out to the families. You know, asking them and telling them, you know, we're going to be watching some pretty heavy-duty stuff, but I think it's important that the kids know exactly what happened today. And because, you know, thankfully for technology, and I'm not a big technology guy, but for something like this, you can pull up the videos on YouTube and kind of live through what happened and show the kids. And as soon as I clicked send on the email to let the parents know that we're going to watch planes impact buildings, I'll try to omit a lot of the blood and guts. We're not going to watch people falling, you know, jumping from buildings, but they need to know what happened. And I had regret when I sent the email, and the only response I got from parents was good. Thank you so much for showing these kids what happened that day, because they need to know what happened. And we watched videos for 40 minutes, and I had them write a paper at the end of the course. These are middle and high schoolers, so I had kids from, 12, 13 up to graduates, who I still get emails from the kids that graduated thanking me so much about the impact that had, because they had no idea what happened that day. And the paper they wrote, I asked them to please take on a role of the day. You could be a bystander. You could work for the media. You could be a first responder. You could be a pilot. You could be, working in air traffic control. You could be working at a desk at United or American Airlines. You could take on. I even offered up to take up the place of a hijacker, and I had a couple of kids that actually did that. And the most moving paper was from a seventh grade girl, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this out, but she talked about how their office was on fire, and she joined with another friend, and they thanked the Lord for the short lives that they had, and they jumped. And it was riveting reading these kids' papers. And so I know I'm dragging on, and I'll let you go, but it was unbelievable reading these papers. And I had parents coming into the class, sitting through a couple of the classes. That's all anybody talked about all last year. So I just wanted to throw that out there, that it's important for our kids to know and to experience it as best they could through the videos, because there's a ton of videos. They're going to have to sift through all the conspiracy theory baloney and need to vote to class the conspiracy theorists and show them. I mean, there's some ugly stuff on there, and the parents will have to kind of monitor it, but it's very important. And I'll let you go. God bless your day, and thanks for taking my call.
God bless you, Kyle. Thank you, sir. There's no droning on today. We need to talk. That's why we're here. That's what we do every morning. Coming up, we're going to go live to New York, where we will hear from Tanya J. Powers at One World Trade Center. And as Kyle said, most of us that were alive during that day, Ray Amaya, he was working here. I was working in Birmingham, Alabama, and just trying to cover that. And I can remember, and maybe you remember this, that every television show, every television station had the news on, and that's back when Dan Rather still was at CBS. He was on MTV, and he was on the Business Network. And people were trying to cope with it. It was really a challenge because, you look at this hurricane going on. Everybody knows what's going to happen with the hurricane. We didn't know if there were more sleeper cells. People were afraid to go to malls. People were afraid to go to airports. You remember where you had the military guarding the airports. I get chills just recalling this. And coming up, we will have how radio dealt with it that day. Radio still, spoken word, still the most powerful way to reach people and trying to cope with it. And I remember working with a gentleman now that's at ESPN, Paul Feinbaum, and, directing him. And the company I was working for, they were worried that Atlanta was going to get hit. We were the backup and coordinating, what to put on the air, what not to put on the air, which was nothing compared to what people were dealing with. And then the responses, right? McKaylee, good morning. You're on KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. First off, I just want to tell you thank you very much for doing what you're doing today. I'll try to be brief here. Well, as you know, I've served in the military, and on this day, actually, I was supposed to return to active duty back in 2001 on this day, and I ended up going back to active duty 3 days later. And when I saw what I saw, as did many other Americans, nothing but pure anger flowed through me, anger because of the loss of innocent life and wanting for retribution with extreme prejudice. So I'm happy to say is that I have no regrets in going over there and taking care of business. And I was happy to do it, and I would do it again 10 times over. And every year, hearing that bell toll, it hits the spot, and not in a good way. So I just want to give a shout out to the families, and to all my brothers and sisters in arms that didn't make it back. They did a hell of a job, and I just want to say thank you. And
God bless. Thank you, McKaylee.
You have a good one.
You too. More coming up next. You're listening to Kevin Miller, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Kevin.
And to Fox News Radio's Tanya J. Powers on KIDO Talk Radio, live from New York. Tanya J. Powers, good to have you with us.
Thank you.
A challenging day for all of us, I would say, especially for you, where you are in downtown New York.
Yeah, it is. It is definitely something that is a day different from any other day here in New York City, especially kind of when you are down here in Lower Manhattan. There's this kind of difference that you notice. That if you're around the memorial, people are obviously very somber because that is where the ceremony is held this morning. That's underway now, and they will start in a little less than 10 minutes by the ringing of the first bell. And that will, of course, signify the beginning of the attack 17 years ago this morning. It's hard to believe when you put yourself kind of in the timeline of history and you think about it. Right now, 17 years ago, there were two giant towers about a block from where I'm sitting. And then there weren't. And, you go to the ceremony, and by the way, the ceremony is where the families and the first responders and the survivors come. It is closed to the public. I've been lucky enough to cover it in person when it happens. And it's one of the most somber and stunning things I have ever witnessed. You have all of these people who are sitting there who lost loved ones and lost, brothers and sisters, firefighters and police people, and you've got the Port Authority officers and so many people who lost their lives, and all the people who loved them and come down there to remember them. And the only thing you can hear, it's very, very quiet during the ceremony, except, which is really weird for New York City, nothing's ever quiet here, but you hear the bell that tolls 6 times throughout the morning at different times. And then you hear the rushing of the water that is in those memorial pools. And even if you never saw the towers standing, when you visit the memorial, you get a real good sense of just how enormous these buildings were because you're standing at the footprint of them. And you realize how massive they are. And you can't help but look up in the air where they would have, been. And you feel extremely small sitting there during that ceremony, hearing the bell and hearing the rush of the water and then them reading the names, and everything else is just pretty quiet. The bell rings 6 times, by the way, once for each of the times that one of the planes crashed, which was, of course, 2 into the towers, 1 in Shanksville and 1 at the Pentagon. And then they toll the bell 2 more times for each of the collapses of the Twin Towers here in New York.
Well, and what a lot of folks don't understand, and it's quite, unless you've been there, and I remember being there a month before that tragedy, that the World Trade Center was very unique to New York because you could go up there, tourists would go in the middle of the night and there'd be nobody there. You could, automatically go up there, and just how wide they were, and not only how wide, but underneath you had a mall, you had a subway station, and the towers were so firm. But, and I'm sure you know this, when you go up to the Empire State Building, it wobbles a little. When you were on top of the World Trade Center, you would look at the Statue of Liberty, it would look like a little toy, but it wouldn't wobble. They were that sturdy. And I don't know if television could do it justice. It was just so secure, and especially the relationship that the city had after that first bombing in '93. They really adopted those towers.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and when you come down to the memorial now, there is a piece of the memorial inside the museum that is dedicated to the bombing in 1993, in February of that year. and the people who lost their lives there. Their names are also, of course, down here at the memorial. That is one of the striking pieces of it. You walk around those memorial pools, and it takes a minute because think about how large the buildings were. You're literally going around the footprint of them, and you see all of these names, and they're etched in the dark sides of these, and it tells you on there, it tells you if they were firefighters, if they were NYPD, if they were Port Authority, which flight they were on. You know, it doesn't say it on each individual names, but there are sections for each. That's how they do it. Yeah, they have it grouped by section. And I think one of the other stunning pieces of this is those are the people who died, that day. They are still finding out who these remains belong to. It has been 17 years, and they're still finding out and identifying the remains of these people. And it's stunning. Not only that, you have all of these first responders, people who live down here, who are, they're being diagnosed with, cancers and sicknesses as a result of that. And I think, it's that number keeps growing. And, so the fallout from this just continues. It's not just the grief and the memory of wherever you were on September 11th and what it did to our country, and our sense of security and our sense of safety. It's still very, very present in the health and the lives of a lot of people who survived it.
Connie J. Powers, we appreciate your reporting, and have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
All right. Doug in Mountain Home, thanks for your patience. You're on with Kevin Miller on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, sir.
Yeah, how are you, Kevin? Thanks for doing this. Yeah, I was awake, seen the first one live hit. I remember where I was at. I was in Grandview, Idaho, working, sitting there at a friend's place. But I'd like to say something about, what's going on with these sanctuary cities, no borders, and, they want to do away with ICE and all that. What do you think was going on with 9/11? I mean, people, I don't understand where they're going. I do understand they're corrupt, Kevin, but I mean, that's what, without law and order and a way to fight these terrorists, that's what we're going to have if they just keep doing what they're wanting to do in these cities, Portland, Seattle, and all the San Diego, San Francisco. That's what we're going to have. Wake up, people. I mean, you think that I don't get what they're thinking, except the politicians are corrupt. It's just like it sort of dawned on me, Kevin, when you hear this sanctuary city. We've had one all along. It's called Washington, D.C. It's been a sanctuary city to them freaking thieves and them thugs that are in that Capitol building stealing and raping this country. And they're called law makers. Really? And that teacher that was just on a little while ago that did that for them kids, I really, really salute that man. And I wish there was more of them that would do that for the Constitution of this country and show the people or the kids in this country what we have. It works. Why do you think them Democrats are fighting so hard to get rid of it? They don't want it to work. They want it to be chaos so they can have your illegal freaking people just like what did 9/11 be able to vote. That's all it is for them Democrats there is a vote and money and power. Wake up, people. Kevin, thank you. God bless you for doing this.
God bless.
I'll see you later.
All right, Doug. God bless you. Coming up next, I want to warn you, we go back to that day 17 years ago on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. And remembering September 11th, 17 years ago, we have not forgotten, again, the sounds of that day on 107.5 FM, 580 AM.
Hi, the captain. I would like to remain seated. There's one aboard and going to back to the airport and hand over demand, so please remain quiet. Say again. 956, did you understand that transmission?
Yeah, that transmission he said was unreasonable. It sounded like someone said they have a bomb on board.
Did you hear the transmission was the airplane that said he had a bomb on board? Affirmative, he said there was a bomb on board. That's what we thought. We just we didn't get it clear. That aircraft you can't get a hold of, is he turned to the east now? He's just turned to the east also. Okay, 956, we had a visual on him, just stand by. Do you have a visual on him now? We did, but we lost him in the turn. You can make a turn back to a 220 heading. Let me know if you can see him. They were making a turn at 956. Negative. We're anybody northwest of you. We're looking now. Okay, American 10-6 and executive 956. We just lost the target on that aircraft.
Man, Z100 852. Something weird is going on.
Yeah.
The World Trade Center is on fire.
Oh my Seriously, goodness. The top of the building. We're trying to get information.
Top level of one of the
news to unfold from New York City.
A plane crashed. Just.
My sister's in that building.
Okay.
And I hope she's okay. And I gotta run to New York. Oh my God! It's complete pandemonium.
All right, first of all, calm down.
There's raining papers and ashes and.
Second plane has now flown in.
Wait, explosion at the Pentagon?
A third location outside New York and outside of Washington.
I don't have words to describe what I'm witnessing right now.
Effective immediately until further notice, flight operations in the national airspace system by United States civil aircraft and foreign civil and military aircraft are prohibited. Freedom itself was attacked this morning by a faceless coward, and freedom will be defended.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God.
On itself, and it is.
It just landed on Manhattan.
All right, so now we look back up to the TV. One of the World Trade Towers has collapsed and fallen.
I've never seen anything like this.
I've got 5 patients. They need to be. We got an ambulance full of cops and pedestrians. Building just collapsed. We don't have much more. Got another tower that just came down 1013. All the cops away from the building. You got a female officer down. Female officer, where are you now, King? Where are you, King? Where are you?
We're not going to be stopped. We're not going to be deterred. We're not going to stay at home. We're not going to be frightened. We're going to live our lives as Americans.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
We're all brothers. We all got to stick together.
One nation, under God, indivisible.
Where are you, King?
September the 11th, 2001. In both Washington, D.C. and New York City, it's business as usual. In a grassy field in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, it's the seconds before 8:42 on a clear, crisp blue sky morning. All of America was basking in comfortable innocence. Okay, my name is Betty Ong. I'm number 3 on flight 11.
Okay.
And the cockpit is not answering their phone. And there's somebody staffed in business class, and we can't breathe in business class. Somebody's got mace or something, and we can't get the cockpit. The door won't open.
We have some planes. Just stay quiet and you'll be okay. We're turning to the airport.
Do we want to think about scrambling aircraft?
Oh, God, I don't know.
Hi, Boston Center, Team U. We have a problem here. We have a hijacked aircraft headed towards New York. We need someone to scramble some F-16s or something up there to help us out.
Is this real world or exercise?
No, this is not an exercise manifest.
That was an explosion. That was an explosion.
September the 11th, 2001. Paul McCartney.
Heather and I were just on the runway, ready to leave JFK, heading back to England. The captain said we are about 6 or 7 planes away from taking off. And then he got on the intercom shortly after and he said, there's been a terrible accident in New York. Those of you off the right-hand side of the plane can see. We looked out and could see one of the Twin Towers on fire. And so the whole thing, the whole atrocity unfolded in front of our eyes.
Indeed. You're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, remembering September 11th, 17 years ago. What were you doing? Your thoughts? We'd love to hear from you. Kevin Miller with you here. Our time is 6:58. Let's get you to work safely and on time. Good morning, Dave.